Hello, and welcome to the Tower Coffee Hour. I'm Ty Terry, and I'll be your host for this broadcast. In this segment, we'll be continuing our series on Mueller happenings with a look at the meeting of the Shared Housing Network that took place on July 23rd at Wildflower Terrace. Affordability, and particularly affordable housing, is a critical and growing issue in the Austin area. All of the candidates running for local offices are talking about affordability. One of the ways we can impact the issue of affordable housing without spending millions of dollars and waiting years for construction is to share housing. The Shared Housing Network is a relatively new organization in the Austin area, and according to the Facebook page Shared Housing Network Austin Area, it was created to bring people together who are interested in shared housing, co-housing, or creating intentional community. This is a place for all of us to get to know each other, to determine compatibility, and to discuss ongoing issues and the benefits of living communally. Our meeting was held in Wildflower Terrace on the 23rd, and it was led by Deaton, who created the Shared Housing Network in the Austin area. So we're going to go to the meeting. We recorded it and edited it and let you see what went on in the meeting. It's a long video, but I think it's worth watching. So we'll send you to Wildflower Terrace for the meeting.
We're going to go around the room in a few minutes and want to know who you are, why you're here, what your interest is in shared housing and affordable housing, and take your mask off then just so we can hear you better. Thank you all for coming. This is becoming a really, really important topic to a lot of people right now. If you've looked at the information that I put together for you, it tells you some demographics on here on the front page, so the purpose of Shared Housing Network. It tells you, talks about, they've been doing a lot of studies lately, and a lot of different groups have been citing these numbers. And so I'm not going to belabor the point and spend a lot of time with that. I want to hear more from you guys. You can read it all. It talks, and so, but what it does is it illustrates how important all of these different options are for affordable housing, because we're all getting priced out of Austin. And then I want to talk to you a minute about how important it is to build this referral network. One of the things that there's a lot of well, first of all, I want to, when I start talking a little bit about affordable housing, well, let me stick to my list here. There's a report that came out called Housing Affordability for 2022. It's a 40-page report. It's very detailed, very specific. It talks about all the different groups in town that are looking into affordable housing and affordability and how they can address it in different ways. And they, way back here on page 35, they want to fund a home sharing program. And so we want to be all over that. We want to be right in the middle. It's time. You know, the only reason I've been trying to do this for 5 years, but I'm doing it out of my own pocket, and it's, you know, and I work and I have other things, and it's hard to do. So what we desperately need is a database and a website. The interest is there. People are wanting the resources and to do shared housing. And I've been researching it for probably 20 years. I've been in touch with the organizations that have been doing shared housing or home sharing or whatever you want to call it, the longest in the country. And I've been following them, and I've seen others start up, and I touch base with them, and then they go out and they go away, and others start up and they go away. And so I've been studying what works and what doesn't, and why are these two or three so resilient? How have they been able to stay together? And it's all been about community support. And you've got to have a reputation, because you're talking about putting people in your homes and sharing your homes with people. So that's why I think it's really, really important to start building a referral network that's reciprocal. Yeah, Debbie?
Could you tell us who put that out and how we can get a copy of that?
I can send that to you.
Okay.
I ask you to give me your email address.
Yeah.
Some of these things, I'll be mentioning some other things to you too.
Okay.
And so after the meeting, just jot down the things that I mentioned that you would like to have, and I'll be happy to send those to you.
Okay.
So in building I think a reciprocal referral network, I'm going to give you, or I have given you on the second page, the affordable housing in Austin. I've given you two different websites or sites where you can find affordable housing online. But what it doesn't tell you is how to apply, what they're looking for, some things like that. So we'll talk about that a little bit towards the end. But also, then there's a lot of different groups in town, the elder orphans, there's a lot of senior service providers and organizations, the United Way. I was talking with the lady who does the 211 program when she found out I was going to have this meeting. She says, we've got young mothers and a young father who's here today that are just desperate for something like this, a program like this. And so they're really excited about it. We've got a few of you here from Finding Female Friends Over 50. I've gotten a good response from that group. So we've just got to start building this up. I have about 70 people on an email list right now, and I just want to grow it and build it. If each of you can tell one or two other people, then it just starts to multiply really fast. And then we can collaborate with these national shared housing organizations that I mentioned to you. And I can email you the information on them. A couple of them you have to join, but like I said, I've had long conversations with most of them. And then I think it's important to develop resources. There's another group called Silver Nest that has been around for about 3 years now, and I've been talking to them since they first started organizing. They do something very similar on a national basis, but it's if you're a renter, it doesn't cost you anything to join. But if you try to go online and started to apply, the agreement is so lengthy and so onerous that I quit. And I do leases. I'm going to show you a lease in a minute. I do leases, and it's just like, I don't agree with this. So in a minute, you're going to hear what I think about leases. And I also don't like I think there's a real problem with, they do matching. And I think there's a real problem with matching somebody you don't know online. What you put on paper is not necessarily who you are. And so it's, even people you know really well, a couple of you have heard this story. I left one of the best housing arrangements I've ever lived in. I left Cindy's Wildflower Abbey to move in with my best friend of 10 years. We had traveled together, we had stayed in each other's houses, we thought and when we went out to eat, we always liked where we went, because, we go where you want to eat. Well, how about this? Oh, that sounds good. Okay, I'll go there. And, the same thing with movies, and when we ate at each other's houses, it's, we'd cook together. But within a week of living together, we started going, who are you? Because we discovered that we actually didn't like the same TV shows. She watched one news station and I watched the other. And, we had always been nice. If I was at her house, I said, whatever. And if she was at my house, I said, whatever. And then when we started cooking, we actually seasoned and cooked very differently. And I said, every time you came to my house, you ate exactly what I cooked. And she said, well, I wasn't going to be rude. And, the same way. And so.
The gardening was a problem too. I remember you telling
The what?
me. The gardening.
And the gardening, yeah. I like a little more organized garden. And she likes the kind that is the real wild. And so we finally split up. She took the front yard and I took the backyard. So there were ways around all this stuff, but it worked great. We just decided she would cook her food and I would cook my food. We would buy food together because it was essentially the same food, but she would cook it her way and I would cook it my way. But when COVID hit and we were together, because prior to COVID, I was gone all during the day. I was working, and she would be gone at night. But she was out running around, going to meetings and doing all kinds of stuff. So we didn't see each other that often. But when COVID hit and we were in the house 24/7, that's when it really became a problem. So here's what many of these long-term shared housing places will recommend. First, most of them don't do a lease, because if you're the homeowner, you don't want that person there. You want to wait for them to get out. And if they've got a lease that says, I can stay here for a year, you're going to have to go to court to get them out. If you're the renter and you want out, you don't want that homeowner saying, I need that money, you have to stay. So I think that the leases need to be more about what are your expectations about living together. But also what I've learned from these groups is to spend 2 weeks to a month staying in that home. And within a few days, you're going to start to know whether it's going to work long term. And you stay there without exchanging any money, because it's to both the homeowner and the renter's benefit to know ahead of time before you move your things in. And because once you've moved your things in, you're going to be harder to get rid of, so the owner may not, it's to the owner's benefit to know if they like you. And as the tenant, it's to your benefit that you don't have to spend all that moving expense and find out it's not going to work. So this is just totally different from most rental situations that you're aware of. But if you talk to most people who are considering shared housing or anything like this, roommates, or their biggest fear is getting a roommate they don't like. Well, this is a way to resolve that. And this is one way that we can know ahead of time without investing a lot of money and time. Okay, so I want to say that because I think that's one of the most important things. So I'm just going to briefly, you can read the rest of these things on here. Because of all of these options that are coming available, well, go to the next page. We're going to talk about affordable housing this winter. Once again, I kind of talked about some statistics here. And because I've mentioned the lease to you, first of all, finding a place. You can go to these kind of places all day long and you're not going to find affordable housing. So I've given you these two lists. One of them is very tedious and very onerous to kind of go through, but it's the oldest. It started through Austin Tennis Council, And I think that Housing Works may be keeping it up now. The second one is like a map, and you can look and see what area of town that you want to be in, and click on that, and it'll tell you what's there. So it's managed by the city. Neither one of these is going to tell you availability that's accurate. There's a couple may say that they have something or come by or whatever, but the vast majority of these all have wait lists. And you're going to have to fill out a wait list, at least a wait list application, which is what this is. And I'll pass this around to you. This is the one for here. And you'll see, I want you to flip to the back page and you'll see the detail. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. This is not the lease. The lease is these are all using the Texas Apartment Association leases like you'll get in any apartment complex anywhere. It's about this thick. And it's the one that's extremely onerous, very detailed and all that. This is just to get on the wait list. But you're going to have to give a lot of information. Nobody ever tells you this, but I'm assuming you're going to be applying at several different places. So you go to the first place and you either take it home and you fill it out and you bring it back and you give it away, or they'll tell you to go sit in the dining room and you're trying to call your bank to find out what your account number is and how much money you've got in the account, and you're trying to do all this stuff, and then you take it back to them and then you give it away. And then you go to the next place and you have to start all over again. Before you ever give your first version away, make a copy of it. Now you can't use that copy at the next place, but at least you can expedite filling the next one out, because nearly all of them use the same forms. So that's I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I just did this. Yes, you did. So make a copy of it so you can find it. And I'll pass that around so you can see that's just the waitlist application. And then they're going to tell you about the wait list, and some of them are going to tell you our wait list is 50 people, or our wait list is 100 people, or it's 2 years, or whatever. On the next page, or last page, let's see which one is it. The next to the last page is this. And this is the most recent. It changes every year in June. All affordable housing is driven by this. It's based upon the median income limits in the city, or in the metropolitan statistical area. The way you read it, for a person, a household of one, this is the annual income. If your income is $23,200 or less, you're going to have a very hard time finding anything, because these are the people with the biggest need, and they've got social workers and nonprofit organizations, helping them and pushing them, with what's available. Also, in most places, the people who live in the community, if you move in at a 50% rate, and if you look on the next page, let me stop this minute. If you look on the next page, this is going to tell you what your rents would be for each of those levels. So if you're a 50% maximum income at $38,650, this is for a 1-bedroom. At the 50% rate is $1,035. Now, that doesn't feel very affordable, but compared to what the average is right now in Austin, which is anywhere from $1,500 to $1,700 for a 1-bedroom. But that helps you kind of determine, where that is.
Can I ask what that additional amount said at the end is?
The allowable, the 57 on here is a utility allowance that is paid on your behalf. And so what you actually pay is the $978. Yes, thanks for asking that question.
So that's your utility bill is $978?
That's what they will pay towards your utility bill.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you would actually pay the $978. So back over here, so when you're looking for a place at the, let's say at the, well, you can stay on that same sheet. And you may have some savings. You may not have the annual income that would qualify you at the 50%, but if you've got some savings or assets, 2% of your assets are calculated as income. And so some people can have some fairly significant assets, especially if they've sold a house. And so that's going to change that a little bit, but if they're working and they quit working, if you're living here, you have priority. If you put in that when a 30% unit comes available, you would like to move in. And so you will have priority over anybody walking in from outside. That's why it's so hard to, you'll see when you look on those lists, well, they have 30%. Well, the 30% is going to be very difficult to get into, just because there's more need and because they're filling those units from people who already live there. So keep that in mind. And they don't always tell you. And then they just say, well, that's a 2-year wait list. Now that I've said that, and somebody asked this question a while ago, because of COVID, there was a lot of movement in all of this, all senior housing. You saw on the news about the nursing homes and people being locked down and all of this, and it scared a lot of people away from this type of housing, even though this was really a safe place, and it was also, you had a lot of support, and you had a lot of both financial support, because most of these places have a social worker that comes in at least once a week that can get you rent subsidies and utility subsidies and food and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of support coming in, but most people don't understand that. But anyways, so a lot of these places have vacancies, not only because people weren't moving in, but because also there were, illnesses and death and things like that. So now that things are opening up, there is some vacancy in some of these, but they have these long wait lists. But if they've got vacancies and they start calling on a wait list that, they haven't really worked in 2 years, those people, if I called you right now, Ani, and I said, I have a room available, can you move in 2 weeks? What are you going to tell me?
I have to give notice.
That's right. You have to give notice, I have to downsize, I have to sell stuff, I have to do this or that. And they're going to go through that wait list just like that. But we still have people walking in the door and says, I'm desperate. I have to be out. We had a man last month came in and said they just sold my building. And everybody has to be out at the end of the month. And this was we're already into the second week. And he said, do you have a room? And we just said, because we had been calling our wait list. And he said, okay, I can move in. And so that, in those cases, you may be able to bypass, and just come right in if nobody else is available. So what I recommend is that you call at least once a month and check, once you turn in your applications, that you just let them know, keep your name on their mind. And so when something does come up, if they're needing to fill a unit right away, they may give you a call, and if not, you're calling maybe at the right time. So it may not be it's not going to happen often, but sometimes it does. Okay. So I pretty much covered what I wanted to cover very briefly. I've been doing this for 40-something years. I have just a wealth of information. I can answer questions all day long. But right now, I want to hear who you are and why you're here and what drives you and how can we match that with what's available. I've got all your email addresses, so I can send you email. You got mine, so you know we can start this communication. But right now, let's. Cindy, you want to start off?
My name is Cindy Barra, and I own Wildflower Terrace, which is,
I'm gonna put my mask back on and you can take yours off.
okay, well, I'm gonna screw this. Wildflower Terrace it's in Cherry Hill. It's 3 contiguous lots that I just was lucky enough to acquire over time. And we took out the dividing fences and put a perimeter around it. So it's like these households living in a big park in the middle of Austin. It's really kind of, it was a blessing to have to get to be there. The reason I'm here is because we're not affordable. And I'm here to learn about different ways of doing things so that it can be affordable. Because I'm very passionate about elder housing, very passionate about shared housing in general. But as I get older, of course, elder housing becomes more and more closer to my heart. And so I'm here to learn, mostly.
Okay.
Hi, and this is actually my very first meeting anywhere ever in relation to,
Could y'all take your mask off?
sorry,
Heidi, what is your last name?
Axelrod.
What is your name again?
Heidi Axelrod. I am a homeowner, and I'm just sort of done with that. My daughter left the house a couple of years ago, and being a single person in the house is pretty overwhelming for me. And I've always been interested in intentional living. So I'm here to find out information about how to have them in my life.
Right.
Yeah.
So, are you interested in having someone rent a room from you?
No, because my
Okay.
house is too small.
Okay.
I would consider renting my house out and living in someone else's property
Okay.
if it were a larger
Okay.
house. But yeah, my house is too small for that.
Okay.
Diane, I'd be curious what you think too small is.
That's a big point.
I'm so
I
aware of that. So aware of
I
that.
know you are
Yes.
sure about your house, but I
Yes,
think it's
yes.
still a good discussion.
Yes,
Because we talked.
You know, in my personal opinion, because I've done a lot of shared housing. I've done shared housing as the homeowner, as the renter, on a total of 7 occasions. I've lived with people younger, older, men, women, never more than one other person. Well, when I was married, there was another couple that we shared a place with. I think it really depends on, it's how the house is laid out. I think it's really is helpful if you can have like the mother-in-law plan. And you're going to find that a lot of people will not share a bathroom at all. I mean, they just, especially older women, they are not interested in sharing a bathroom. I can tell you, younger people are a lot more tolerant of any and everything. My son didn't think anything of sharing a home with a tiny little bedroom, sharing a bathroom with, that was when he was in his 20s, with an older woman who was 64 years old. He had met her through somebody, and she was looking for, somebody to help cover costs, and she said, "Can you mow a yard?" And he said, "Yeah." And he says, "And I'll take out the trash." And she wasn't a mother to him, and she didn't ask him where he was going or what he was doing, so he thought that was better than living alone. And they lived together for a year. Actually, he moved into an apartment with her for a short period of time, even when she moved.
And yes, I'm very sensitive to that, because, there are people in other countries that share a lot smaller than my house. But the way my house is set up, it
Yeah.
would not.
Okay. Tony, Ty?
So I've done a lot of shared housing. I owned a house as a single mother, and at one point, when my daughter went to college, I had a local junior college person live there for a while. She's in the tiniest bedroom, she had a hamster, you know, and stuff, and she didn't mind sharing. My younger brother and I worked in New York City at the same time, and his situation changed. He lived in my basement for 2.5 years. Here he was the vice president of marketing in a big corporation. And I lived, after I sold my house, I was 50-ish, and I lived with some 30-year-olds in a 5-bedroom house, and he had the cupboards, which were your cupboards, and which was your part of the refrigerator, and stuff like that. And they still live in the house, but they raised 2 kids, and now we don't need to share. I've shared as a couple, which is a whole different thing, and actually shared housing influenced our getting together, you know, and so we're in another experiment of shared housing and shared expenses and shared work, and who's doing the cooking or who's washing the dishes and stuff like that. It takes a lot of communication and also ability to deal with some frustration, I would say. You know? And that it's not always perfect. I'm working on that muscle. Having been an independent woman for 45 years. You know, so I also have, through this, become friends with Diana and visited your property once. And I so believe in it as a solution. It's one of the solutions. Also, we're dreaming of building in Mueller on the one big piece of empty property, and included in that would be some kind of shared housing, you know, and there'd be the opportunity to design for it, and that would make a difference, you know, like having half baths or something like that. So just done a lot of it, believe in it, and wanted to hear what Diane had to say and hear from you too. So that's why I'm here.
And your name is Sharon?
Ani.
Oh, my name is Rose, okay.
Ty, you wanna add to that? He's the other half of that equation.
On the other hand, though, I shared a house for 45 years with my wife. She passed away about 10 years ago. Never necessarily wanted to get married again. And met Ani here in the neighborhood. Love the neighborhood. I've been involved in this neighborhood since the beginning in various ways. So it made sense for us to go together and pool resources. I walked in after 45 years of marriage, I walked in with a fairly large chunk of equity. So does it make sense to go into an apartment? Probably not. So we bought a house, 2 stories. Probably not a good idea, so next time we built a 1-story, we switched from a 2-story to a 1-story. We actually live in a shared house. Our house is laid out so the master bedrooms at the back, all the living spaces in the middle with the kitchen, and then there's 2 small bedrooms and a bath in the front. So that's my office and my room and my bath up front, basically. So we're basically sharing the space. But I could move back in without having a master bedroom, and we could rent out that space. It would be a really cool little suite for somebody. So that's the kind of house that begins to make sense for that. But like Ani said, we've got this vision of doing something where we actually create shared space, co-housing space, where we know the designs of where they work. All over Sweden, they've got these places where they're built for that. They build a place for 20 people, and it's got shared space. It's got like that. Everybody's got their own space. Everybody's got their own private space, but a lot of it's shared. So we know it works, and that's where we are. What I'm doing here is we are reporting on things that are happening in Mueller that are important to Mueller. So we are recording all of this. It will go up on YouTube. I'll send a link to Diana and she can send it out to y'all so you can get a vision of this,
You're recording everything we say?
everything we say.
Oh, good, now I'm gonna start taking notes.
So, anyway, it will be up, and we call this the Tower Coffee Hour, after the tower here in Miller. And we just call it the Coffee Hour, it's a news show for Miller. So that's what we're doing here today. You got a camera here, I snuck a camera in over there, by the way. So there's a little camera over there that Arnie and I are on right now. And that's what we're doing here.
I would like to add one other thing. We have money down in the condos they're building. It's one of the things, because Ty had this equity, I used up my equity already. There were no one-story condos in Mueller, and finally they're building. And one of the reasons we're doing that is our downsizing, and for people being around. And I have found after shared housing that living in a single-family home, particularly with the COVID, has been isolating. And isolation is one of the biggest causes of dementia for older people.
And let me just say, our little community was a lifesaver in that respect, because we have an outdoor area where we could meet in distance, but we met every day, we had coffee every day, and it made all the difference in the world.
David?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a hearing problem with people in Maslin, that's really hard.
You gonna try to hear from?
Hi, I'm Debbie. Last year, right around this time, I had to move out of a duplex that I was living in alone for 28 years, right in the middle of Rosedale for an incredibly cheap rent. I mean, I was spoiled. I loved that duplex so much. That neighborhood has an amazing community. And my rent was about probably a third of what my landlady could charge. Now, she hardly fixed anything up, and so I lived in a lot of broken down stuff, but it was worth it to me, and I had a huge yard. And the woman next door who lived on the other side was there even longer than 28 years, and she and I became really close friends. And it was like this amazing situation. I can't tell you how wonderful it was. But then the woman next door died, and my landlady decided that she wanted to sell the place, and everything went crashing down. So last year was the worst year of my life, actually, because I had to move out of this wonderful, wonderful situation. Plus I was mourning the loss of this woman who died. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry. And that's right when all the housing market cost a lot, and I couldn't find it. I would find nice places, but they were in horrible neighborhoods and that kind of stuff. And I know I was spoiled, but I didn't know I was not prepared for such a high rent. I was paying, when I moved out of that place, I was paying $1,025 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath place with a huge yard that I had totally landscaped and everything. So I started running out of time, and I had to pick something. So I ended up renting the place I'm in now, which is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo that I'm renting in a close to Far West in Mopac. But I've been spoiled my whole life. I've never lived in a large family housing situation. I've only lived in duplexes or individual houses. Not that I've lived in fancy-wancy places, but I'm territorial, and I love having the land to be able to, anyway, and so this condo is a real change to me because there's people upstairs and all around. Fortunately, the people are quiet, but the only outdoor space I have is a little porch, and they even monitor what you can and can't put on that. And I'm used to having this huge yard where I can put all my doodads, and I'm an artsy-fartsy person, so I had lots of doodads, and now I have just a few things on the porch, and and so I'm not used to being restricted, and I know I can change, but I don't want to. But I'm in a situation where I have to. So, also, since I'm a baby boomer, and most of us in this room are, anything beyond a first floor apartment or a first floor living situation is not practical. I just recently had hip surgery, but even if I didn't, as we all get older, I mean, I don't want to be in a place where I can't get out if there's an emergency or something like that. So I don't want to be in a second floor place at all. And so I keep I'm trying to keep my mind open to other possibilities, but, so I don't know how much, I'm very, okay, I'm very extroverted, so it's so important for me to be around a community spirit. We don't have to look alike or act alike, but I want it to be safe. I want us to be honest and share things with each other, and I've been spoiled because that's what, I'm not saying everybody in Rosedale is that way, but there were a few that were just wonderful. When COVID came along, I was able to take care of some of my need to talk to people by going out in the front yard and gardening, because people were walking along and I could talk to people I didn't even know, and I got to know them that way. And so I mean, and people took care of each other. I mean, I just, you know, I was so spoiled. And so, so it's kind of like getting divorced, I suppose, and now I'm trying to figure out my life. But I've even been watching, I've been spending 2 hours a day watching these TV shows on tiny houses and how to build them. And, because I don't have cables, but this channel's only available, I think, for people who don't have cable. But I've even considered moving into having a tiny house built, because that's in my income, and trying to find someone who has property that that's eligible to accept tiny houses, because to me that's kind of the best of both worlds. I have my own property, but I'm close enough to other people. I don't mind sharing the outside part, but I don't want to live with it. I mean, I'm just being honest. I don't want to live with someone unless I get a romantic relationship, which hasn't happened in too long a time. But anyway, so, and how come there's only 2 men here, by the way? I mean, not that I came here to meet a man, but anyway. Sorry about that, you guys. I had a little humor in there. But seriously, so I've been looking into other possibilities, and the tiny house thing is just fabulous in my mind. I've seen all kinds of possibilities. But anyway, so I've been in Austin over 50 years. I don't want to move from Austin. And I love Austin so much, but I want to live in a place that has trees. Anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to hear about me, but I'm so glad to be here with like-minded people who are searching.
Ty, did you want to say something?
2 things. Part of what we're doing is interviewing all the candidates who are voting for us. Without an exception, they're all talking affordable housing.
They're all what?
They're talking affordable housing. Every one of them, the mayor, city council members, the state representatives, they're all talking, it's a crisis in our neighborhood, in our community, and they're all talking about it. Second thing, I lived in shared housing for 7.5 years. My son was in a house that had mold. He had to leave the house. He lost all his equity. He moved in with his wife and 1 child. He moved out 7.5 years later with his wife and 3 children. And it was an amazing time to have that 3-generation household. But it almost drove me nuts. Drove me nuts.
Yeah.
And I was kind of glad when he moved out. But he lives in Mueller, about 3 blocks away.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Can I add something else? I forgot, you said something that reminded me. So I'm retired, but I don't have a very big income. And most of it is in savings, so I thought 2% is not, fortunately the 2% is not enough. Anyway, that's a whole different story. But so I am retired, and I wanted to say, well, I'll add the rest another time. Okay, sorry. I
John, you want to tell us about you?
Sure. So my name is John. Last name is Hospod, and I'm I'll be 54 tomorrow. So 54-year-old, single dad, and got priced out of a rental house in far South Austin about a year ago actually. Had a deal for 7-8 years. The owner never changed the rate, and then one day he said, "I'm raising $1,000."
Oh.
And that was it. So I, after my divorce, met a wonderful person who lives here in Mueller, and decided to move to this neighborhood. She lives here in a house with her 2 children, and it's not a big house. And we're progressing with our relationship, but moving in is not an option at this point. And I live in the Mosaic apartments in a 2-bedroom, and I am getting priced out. Like, I can't afford to stay there. They raised it enough, and I barely was able to afford it. It sticks to it. in a crisis right now where I have to move out, probably make a decision here in the next month or so. But I can't afford the 2-bedroom rate anymore there.
Ooh.
And so, I don't know where to do. So that's why I came to the meeting, because I don't know what to do. My kids are enrolled. Part of the reason I moved here too is to put them in the Maplewood Elementary School, because it was their first time in school. They were homeschooled before that, and I thought it would be a good place for them, and I want to keep them there. My goal is keep them in school there and find something for them. And so I'm considering, like, within my complex, they have a 1-bedroom, 1-den situation, but that's still like, instead of $2,400 a month, it's $1,800. You know, so it's still like way out there. And I'm a tennis professional, and I am also entering grad school in a month for a master's program in mental health counseling.
I'm getting tired of listening to you.
You better practice.
So I'm starting full-time grad school, and I'm trying to work full-time.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know where to live. And I'm going to the seminary of the Southwest, by the way, so it's about 7 minutes from here, which that's part of the reason I love this neighborhood. So there's schooling, there's my school, and I don't know where to live. And so that's why I'm here.
When I said I was tired of listening to you, I didn't mean that as an insult.
No.
I was just saying, how can you do all that?
I'm okay.
I hope you didn't take it the wrong way.
No, it's okay. I am overwhelmed.
Oh my gosh.
My children are 7 and 10, and they're within Maplewood and going into 2nd and 5th grade.
They're too young to chip into the rent.
And you have to live in the school district where you want them to go. They don't have another parent that could.
Their mom lives far south Austin in a school district. They would have to change schools,
Oh.
and it's far. It's like the 1626 far south Austin. It's like beyond. It's like Onion Creek
Oh, yeah.
neighborhood, generally speaking, all the way down there. And so yeah, and she wishes to keep them in this neighborhood too, but she doesn't live up here. That's my address keeps them in that school. And so I don't know. So anyway, I'm gonna sort of a crisis plan. I don't know.
You are.
Donna?
Hi, I'm Donna Brown. I came to Diana's meeting 2.5 years ago and got all excited about all of this, and then, the world shut down. So, and at the time, I would almost call myself a professional roommate. And I'm single, I don't have kids or grandkids, and I'm very flexible. I can live with people. I was thinking about your situation. I don't need a lot of room. I've kind of spread out. I have a 1-bedroom apartment with a den for $1,500, but it's going to go up. I know it is in a few months. So I've got more crap now. But I worked at Dell Computer for over 20 years, and I was totally fried. I quit 2013, and I'm living off my savings. Now I'm about to turn 65, and I'm finally rested. I'll be 10 years later. I'm okay. I think I'm finally rested from that horrible 20 years. So I should go back to work, but I also could just live off of social. Because I'm about to turn 65 with a lot of decisions to make. So I'm kind of in crisis in a different way. I have a lot of decisions to make because I know that my rent will get raised way too much, and I'm thinking maybe I can live on just Social Security and what I have left of my savings, but I know I should go at least get a part-time job. But I tried to work for Macy's for a year. That about killed me. Retail's so awful. But so I've got a wonderful credit rating. All my bills are paid like that. It's just very important to me. So I could still, maybe buy into something. I think I could do that. I still think I would be a great roommate. So that's why I'm here.
Okay.
And having roommates is I'm where they coined the term introvert, but I have friends who came and lived with me for a while, and I was surprised at how pleasant it really was. Just saying.
It's nice to get up in the morning and have somebody say good morning to
It
you.
is. It is.
Yeah, I've lived with one person, I've lived with a couple, I've lived with 3 other single people you know, 5-bedroom house like I've experienced at all. That one was a bit challenging, but everybody worked, so everyone was gone a lot, so that was nice too. Yeah. A lot of people that are renting out rooms, they say they don't want someone that's retired, because they don't want them around. But that's not every place, you know, some places that's fine, but some of them, they're very specific. Like, well, I know the Craigslist, looking for roommate ads like the back of my hand, I can help you. I mean, it's a mess out there on Craigslist, but, you know, there are the good ads out there that are real, and I've, you know, had a lot of success with that.
Okay, Chris?
And glasses with the mask. Yeah. My name is Chris. I've been in Austin about 6 years, and I'm here just out of curiosity. I may not stay here, but I'm starting to look. I mean, I've got a lovely apartment that I adore, but long term, I don't know. And I'm just curious about options and kind of the drift of where housing is going for those of us who are older.
Okay. Sharon?
Okay, Cindy, I'm also a Travis County Master Gardener, and I went to your place after one work day over off Balm Road.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God.
I finally figured it out, right, where are you?
That's right.
And I was so impressed, especially the chickens. I'm sorry, I grew up around chickens, they were great.
What's your name?
My name is Karen, I'm an Austin native. My parents' first house was at 1115 East 51st. So I lived in Mueller before Mueller was cool. And then they made us move because, you know, they said we're gonna put the airport there. So my parents moved and stayed out. My son and I had a house. I loved it. I still own it. I'm thinking of moving back into it when my renters leave because the taxes have gone sky high. I'm over 65, I can get that exemption. I moved out of the house because I took care of my mother for about 5.5 years. We've managed to find a duplex where she had one side and I had the other. She liked it at 82 degrees and I could not survive that. After she passed, I said, I'm gonna go travel. And I bought my ticket for Athens on April 20th. Well, that didn't happen. I still got the money to travel with, and she knew when she passed I was going to take her savings and just, I'm going to go see the world, and we know that really hasn't happened as well as we'd like it to. Currently I live in a cooperative apartment complex. I've had roommates, I don't right now, but I have had, and some have been good, some have been bad. It's called La Reunion. It's over near Anderson Lane, North Lamar 183. And it's 20 units, and I moved there before COVID, and I'm really glad I did. I downsized, I got rid of a lot of things. Let's just say I had 17 bookcases full. And I don't have any books now. I have maybe 3 or 4, and I have a big Kindle. When COVID hit, we all had chairs outside our doors.
Aww.
And we do have a commons area where we used to go have meals together every night. Someone would cook or you could bring your own food, and it was just like, you know, the Waltons are a big family, it's multi-generational. I'm still there and I love it for a lot of reasons. Like I said, when COVID hit, I'd have people call and say, I'm going to H-E-B, do you need anything? And I've got some neighbors who don't drive, and I take one especially out to the VA off Montopolis because he doesn't have a car. I also work with a group called Boomers Collaborative. I gave most of you the sheet, Cindy, and I'll give you yours, don't worry. We have gotten in to the Ryan Drive project, which the city is doing as part of their transportation movement. It's at, I'll say, St. John's Airport, North Lamar, and they've taken over a city energy site. We got really lucky because we found out who owned the 2 properties on either side of the property, which was a developer. And we had a good idea that they were probably going to get that property so the city could combine it all into one. And we managed to get in, and they mentioned Boomers when they did their RFP, and we're still there. There are going to be apartments not limited equity, which is what I really like, but it's our foot in the door. We started about 2015, trying to get into the Grove and got priced out of that rather quickly. Would have been great, but such is life. I also work, and we haven't done very much either, is armadillo co-housing, because I've always wanted to live, I want my own bathroom, my own bedroom, but I don't want to live alone. Part of Boomers was we'd have work space and things below us, and our commons area would include a maker space, which I'm not really too artsy, but I can deal with it. Like I said, I'm an Austin native. I don't want to leave. I love the city. My son's in DC. Have a good time, babe. No grandkids. I want to live with people. I like my reunion, but I'm to the point where I'm probably either going to move into my house and get a roommate so I can hopefully travel someday and have someone live there so the house isn't abandoned. So that's my story. And I'm really glad that Deanna did this because I was there also helping Carol 2.5 years ago. And COVID just sunk a lot of us down pretty far. And I'm glad to see we're able to get out some, but it's limited. But at least it's working again. And thank you, Deanna, for doing this.
Yeah, Debbie.
I want to share something that a friend of mine wanted me to share that, well, she wasn't able to come here, but she has a house that has a real good, she owns a house that has a real good setup so that it would be real easy. It's long and narrow so that she could rent out one room at one end of the house and she could have her own half and they have their own bathroom and all that. But what she wanted me to tell you is that, and she lives about a mile from AMD in South Austin. And I don't know if AMD still has this program, but they were getting interns to come there to work for, AMD wanted interns to come there and work 6 months to a year. And they vetted them, but they checked their references so carefully beforehand. So my friend who had this, and they were looking for temporary housing and they didn't want long-term leases. My friend heard about this through the grapevine, and so she felt that she trusted the vet, anyway, she felt that they were really checked out carefully. And so she had a series of these interns stay with her at her place. One time that she rented out 2 bedrooms. She's a widow now, so she has lots of room. But anyway, and but this went on for 3 or 4 years, and she had a wonderful experience. Most of these guys, there were some women, but some of them were men, but they were. I think all of them were from India, and I don't mean that only people from India are interns, but it just so happened that was the case. And so, but they all could speak English, and they were all PhDs, and anyway, so they opened. It was such a great situation because they all learned a lot from my good friend Pat, and they got to have really good Texas food. But anyway, it was such a wonderful situation. She didn't charge them very much, but that was okay. But for someone who owns property, who doesn't want a long-term situation, like my friend Pat said, she doesn't know if AMD still does this, but there's always the possibility of the university, because I work at UT. I mean, what I wanted to say is there may be some good people, so there are some resources in town where people are good people, and for whatever reason, they may be going to graduate school, and so they just want something on a short-term basis, and they're working so hard in graduate school, they don't have time to mess up your property. Or, I mean, what I mean is, there may be people who can stay on a short-term basis and give you income, and they've already been checked out and all that stuff, and it was a wonderful experience. And so anyway, that's what I
Well,
wanted
as
to
a
share.
matter of fact, I understand that the seminary of the Southwest really is desperate.
It's in what?
The seminary of the Southwest, this gentleman was talking about, is desperate to find places for their students. I heard that.
What
Yeah.
university?
Seminary in the Southwest.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
so,
Which is just right on the other side
yeah,
of
I
the
contacted them about housing, and they only have, what do they call it, studio apartments,
Uh-huh.
and it's like a 400 square foot, and I'm trying
Oh,
to,
yeah,
and
Oh, yeah,
I was tempted to look at it, but
yeah.
I have 2 kids,
yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't know could I make that work?
Well, I'm just saying for these people that have big houses and
Oh.
are and looking for
Oh, I see.
people to stay, that
Yeah.
would be a good source.
Sure.
Yeah.
And my friend, none of these people had pets whatsoever, and they didn't have kids. So that probably makes a big difference on whether you want them or not. But they all, in some ways, I think that people that you don't know can work out better as housemates than people you do know. That was my experience, and I've done it both ways, and I did much better with someone I didn't know when we interviewed each other ahead of time. I had the worst experience with someone I did know because we were afraid to confront each other when something wasn't right. And that was a long time ago. I'm a little bit better talking about things now, but back, as you can tell. But anyway, I just wanted to share that possibility.
So, what I knew I was gonna get out of this is all of the different options and all of the different ways you can do different types of shared housing. You know, I thought a long time when I was trying to come up with a name for this group. And, you know, people ask me, well, why do you call it shared housing when you talk about all different kinds of things? And I said, well, in my mind, anytime you've created an intentional community where people are all sharing some common space, to me, that's shared housing. And so, since I got to make the decision, then that's how I came up with it. So I include all of these things when I start talking about this. Austin is really pushing hard right now for the auxiliary dwelling units, where they take either a garage apartment, you turn a garage into a garage apartment, what we used to call granny flats, put a little cottage in the backyard. There's the tiny houses, there's 2 or 3 tiny house communities around here. There's some of the mobile home parks that are kind of intriguing right now, except the developers are starting to go in and try and buy up that land, but they're trying to co-op them now.
Yeah, they already have. There's one in North Austin that I'm aware of, that NASCO bought the property and.
So that's a way you can do some really affordable housing and have a bigger space. So there's just there's apartment complexes, there's, if you get into some of these older apartment complexes, the city is buying up a lot of older apartment complexes now. They're trying to I guess the word they're using is conserve a lot of the older housing stock where people have lived for years and years and years. And that's actually where I live now. It was an apartment complex that was the one and only affordable community west of I-35 for years and years and years.
Mhm.
And it's right over off Steck Avenue, right across from Luby's cafeteria. I mean, talk high-end neighborhood, beautiful, enormous, majestic oak trees all around. It is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And the location couldn't get any better. But with affordable housing, they are mandated, because of their financing, that they have to keep it affordable for 40 years. At the end of 40 years, they can sell it off to the highest bidder. And unfortunately, it's these big developers that come in, they buy it up for, next to nothing, because of affordable housing property that old has easily not been maintained as well as it could or should have been. And they tear them down and they build these big high rises and they charge these really high rents.
When is that 40 years coming up?
Well, and so that's where a lot of these new high rises are being built and, really expensive. The city of Austin has, they have partnered with some of the philanthropic organizations in town. They're notifying, or through the Texas Housing Agency and some of these finance agencies, they know when these properties are coming up now. And they are notifying the city of these philanthropic organizations, and they're now buying up these properties. The one that I live in, they bought it up about 2 years ago when the 40 years hit, and they have come in, they put a new roof on it, new flooring, new lighting, new doors, new windows, new heating, cooling. Everything is virtually new, except the trees. We still have all the beautiful trees. It is just a gorgeous place. You know, it's an older community, so we just have a patio, but it's big. But the other thing, Debbie, that I'm like you, I'm a gardener, and to move into an apartment complex, these new ones nowadays, I just can't tolerate it. I lived in a new affordable property last year, and you know, it was new, everything was beautiful and nice and what have you, but I didn't have a good place to garden. This place, they're so laissez-faire, or they're just, people have lived there for so long that, I mean, literally, people have lived in this community for 30 and 40 years. And so it's one of the natural occurring retirement communities. There's a lot of younger people too, a lot of musicians live there. But, so I now garden all across the front, down the corner, in the back. And I'm not the only one by any means. So,
We went to morning when she left Wildflower Terrace.
so we're starting to see more and more of these. And so the company, so they bought it, they put it under the Austin Housing Authority. But we don't have to do all like that big lease agreement and all of that wait list stuff. You know, just simply went in and said, this is our income, this is, you know, they did a credit check, they did criminal history, and said, yeah. I actually was working there that day. They typically have so little turnover that they don't even keep a wait list. And because people have lived there so long. But through COVID, or last part of COVID, I worked through a temp agency, and I worked at apartment complexes, and they called me to see if I would consider driving from Leander down to Austin to work in that, and I said, no, I don't want to drive that far. By the way, what's the name of it? They said Bentry. I said, I'm there. And so after the second day, I was already in love with the place, and I saw all the work being done, and I said, well, how do you get on the wait list here? They said, you just have to walk in behind the person who gives their notice. And I happened to be there that day.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's a fabulous
Well, you
place.
deserve it.
Thank you. But here's another thing too. I am now working here as the resident services coordinator. I work part-time. One of the things is when you are working in most any apartment complex in town, after you've worked there for a while, you can live in one of their apartment complexes for a pretty discounted rate. Some of them, most of them are 20 to 50% discounted. So, you know, that's maintenance, that's working in the office, that's leasing agent, that's, you know, a lot of different things you can do. So that's another thing. There are also some older apartment complexes here in town. I only know of a couple of them, but I've heard of others. I know there are a lot of others they're owned by, you know, somebody who bought them years and years and years ago. They've taken good care of them. They've had people that lived there for a long time, and they just kept the rates low. And they're not subsidized in any way, shape, or form, but, you know, they don't have a lot of the amenities. But so this is the kind of thing I want to start a database about. All of these types of places. So when somebody comes and says, I don't qualify for these affordable places, but this is, you know, kind of what I'm looking for, you know, we can just pull up and say, okay, here's an older apartment complex that's still affordable, but you don't have to do all that qualifying for. And they're all, so it all falls under like I said, the umbrella to me is intentional community, because these are places that you know, people have gotten, when you make an effort to get to know people around you, and you care about the people around you, and you interact and engage in that community. That to me is what is about intentional community, and it's gonna help you live longer and a happier, more joyful life in most cases. You know, there are some people who just don't like that, but for most of us, we don't have to get involved in everything, but just having somebody to say hi to every morning. That's what I love about living at Cindy's place. When you drive up down the street, they just look like every other little house over there. But every one of those houses has a back porch. The back porch is what opens onto this little community. And you walk out of your back porch and you know, Cindy's over there getting eggs from the chicken coop. You need eggs this morning, or, you know, somebody else is, you know, out sitting in the dining pavilion, or, you know, it's just having that connection. Actually, Texas A&M University, there's a woman there who did a whole study about what does it take to create this joyfulness and feeling of community. And it's not that you have to have dinner every night with somebody. It's not that you have to live with them. It's just that connectedness. And the fact that, you know, if you don't go out on your back porch after the second day, somebody's going to come check on you. You know, somebody's going to know you're missing. Somebody's going to know that you, there's, that connection.
Two things. One of the most difficult things about living in for me, living in a condo or apartment complex like I am right now, it's only 2 stories high, and there's only 5 buildings, so it's not huge or anything like that, but the only time I see anybody is when they're walking from their car to their, inside their place, because they don't have any yards, it's too hot to be on the porch, and that's pretty limiting to me, so I've met a lot of people just walking my dog. But anyway, so I wanted to share that. You were talking about you can just look outside, but that doesn't happen in these big places.
That's right, yeah.
But the other thing I was going to add is, there's something you said that touched upon this. You said about these older houses that have been owned by the same people for a long time and they're renting them out. Well, that's how I was able to have such low rent, is it was owned by somebody, a retired professor this place was completely, I mean, she had nothing to pay for other than upkeep and taxes, because this place was paid years ago, and she wasn't out to make a whole lot of money. She was happy just getting what she got from myself and the woman next door. We were trustworthy and taking care of the place, and so I don't resent her for not keeping it up. I mean, she fixed major things, but the thing is, there's a lot of wealth in Austin, and if they've owned property for a long time, they may be in the same situation. They've already paid all the, I mean, the equity's already paid for, but people who have just bought a house, the idea of renting it and making money, they have to ask a lot of money because they just paid a lot. So what we need to do is find people who have owned a place for a long time, who's up money hungry and would be willing to give it to
So Debbie, Zillow did a national survey in key cities a few years ago, just a couple of years ago. And that's what they looked at is with the baby boomers, you know. So you've got someone, you know, the kids are gone, so, you know, they have a big house, say a 4-bedroom house. The kids are gone now, and in a lot of cases, one of the spouses has died or they're divorced. And so there's one person living in this big house. So the taxes have gone up, and maybe the income isn't there, especially if it was a divorce or something. So the maintenance is starting to you know, they're needing more maintenance on it. There's, as the person's gotten older, they're more concerned about safety and security, and just maybe needing some more help around the house, like the lady who wanted my son to mow the yard and take out the trash. Zillow found that there were literally thousands of these where you could get a whole bedroom, you know, like 2 bedrooms and a bath and a little sitting area. That now they did not pick Austin as one of the cities that they did that. And I asked both the city demographer at the time and the Housing Works, who does a lot of the research and statistics, if they had that kind of information. They don't. But I think if we start putting the word out and start talking shared housing, one of the groups that I want to talk to is, well, there's two different groups. The Finding Female Friends, that's why I've been, putting notices there. Finding Female Friends over 50. So, we're gonna start picking up some of those women that way. And then also the Village Networks, Capital City Village. That's a group of people who live in Northwest Hills in those bigger homes, and they're all retired. And it's a virtual village. They've created their own, you join it as a member. And if you need anything, you go online and you say, I need help cleaning out my garage. I need to ride to the airport. Can somebody take me to I have to have a colonoscopy. Can somebody take me and sit and wait for me and bring me home? And then they socialize all the time. They all live in their own big houses. But every one of those people are living in big houses. And as they're getting older, I'm more than convinced that a lot of those might be willing to share parts of their homes. Because you can't get caregivers at a reasonable cost anymore. And they're not available at any price. And nobody, very few people want to move from their homes. And so it's just a matter, but those are they don't know how to find the person to share a house with. People our age typically don't want to go on Craigslist and look for somebody to live with and share a house with. You don't feel safe.
That's how I ended up where I am right now. I'm living in the domain. I mean, I never would have thought in a million years I could afford to live in the domain. But a woman's son, she's my age, put an ad on Craigslist, and he wants someone to live with her because she has mental health issues. I have no experience with that. I've been in the administrative system, so I've been a good worker and wrangled cats and all that kind of stuff. So, I went and met her, and so I did it for a year, and my pay was I didn't have to pay rent or utilities. I just paid for my own food and everything. And it was rough, but I'm so glad I did it, because I did it for a year, so I paid no rent for a year. And then they ran specials because the place wasn't full, which was shocking to me that it wasn't full. So I did that, but now things are booming big time. But Craigslist, it's tough. I mean, you have to weed through a lot of crap. But that's how I got that.
Yeah.
And I would love to live with one of those. I mean, I can do the caretaking, not too, no nursing background at all. I emptied, when I went back to New Mexico for a couple of years after I left Dell, I lived with a woman, and she was in her 80s, and I did a lot for her. I drove here, drove there. I didn't have to do anything too personal other than I had to empty her diaper pail, but I didn't have to help her with that, so I can do that. So keep that in mind.
There are a lot of people who just want a companion, somebody to be there.
Yes, just
So-
to be there, yeah.
So you see the need, you see the opportunities. I mean, it is just huge. I could go on and on and on forever. Home health agencies are desperate for companions they can't find enough people to be companions to just go live with them or just go stay with somebody for 12 hours a day. For 12 hours, they're looking for 12 hours a day because they can't find anybody to live there. So we just need to start putting together this database and get the word out and start educating the community. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. So here's what I need. I'm willing to share all my knowledge and all of my reports, anything y'all want, ask, and I'll be happy to send it or share it with you. I need help. I set up a couple of years ago a Facebook. I don't even do Facebook for myself, so I'm terrible at this. I don't keep it up. If anybody would like to be the administrator of that Facebook page, I'd love to have some help there. I'm putting together a proposal to see if I can get a small little grant that I can do a website that, will have, so people can find us easily. So we can do a database that make it easy to, also to sort stuff out, to, when somebody's looking for something. So, anybody that's got any skills and knowledge there, that would be
Someone to set it up, you mean, or to maintain it?
both.
Okay.
Yeah, I am, I'm not very knowledgeable with computer stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I'm in the same boat. I have a the Wonderman Project Facebook page that's actually set up for a business. And I look at it and I just go.
yeah. There, and so what I would like to do is, because there are so many different options out there, I want to meet at different places so that you can see some of the things. I've seen all the pictures and I've talked to the people of a couple of the tiny house communities. I saw one as they put their first house up, but I haven't seen it since then. Love to take people back over to Wildflower Abbey. If you haven't been to Wildflower Abbey, that's definitely a treat. We'll wait till it cools off a little bit.
Yeah, it's really sad right now.
There's some really neat senior living communities too. So if y'all got time to take a tour of this one, these can be a lot of fun to live in. If you ever lived in a dorm, that's kind of what it's like. Except you've got all of this common space. You probably saw the theater room right here. My job here is resident services coordinator, so I've always been the property manager, and now I get to do the play part. And so, we're going to start showing movies a couple of times a week, and I just did my first real calendar, but we've got bingo and every card game you can imagine. I just got the ladies who wanted to quilt, I got a quilting frame donated, so they sit in here and quilt and, visit and chatter. We've got exercise room, we've got I'm gonna get somebody to come out and do computer classes. We've got, 8 or 9 computers back there. We have we got a bluegrass jam group that is now starting to play here. Yeah, Ty just videoed them over the weekend. And I'm starting a garden club.
Of course you are.
Yeah, between the freeze and the drought and landscaping has really kind of fizzled around here. So our garden club's going to start identifying areas that we need to work on. Yeah, Ani lived here for how many years?
5 years, and
Yeah, I took her away.
that was one of the first 50 residents. So it was such an interesting environment in the very beginning, and to see it grow. And there are a couple leaders in this community who kept the same job for 10 years. One leads the free Tai Chi class that we have on Tuesdays and Thursdays right across on the lawn, and it's 9 o'clock in the summers if you want to come do Tai Chi. And it's very easygoing. Ty's the backup one, which has just been great because Joy and her husband travel now and then, and she doesn't have to worry. And that's really wonderful. I suggested to Diana that right across the street they aren't taking care of that garden spot, and I can connect her. But one of the things that I don't think we've mentioned, we have a wisdom crew here in Mueller, people who what?
Keep going.
And currently for $20 a year, you get a card, and then at B.D. Riley's and some other places you get a discount. B.D. Riley's has a 25% discount on drinks and dinner all the time. That is right there. And over time, I hope we'll get that going more. But there are two women I thought of who, one is single and one's a new widow, and they live in 3 or 4 bedroom houses by themselves. And neither of them have considered living with others. They just say, they kind of go like this about it. And so opening up that mindset and stuff for people is another venue of stuff and putting information together.
And I think that comes from just starting to get familiar with it, because, and that's the other reason for this. There are some matching services that you can go online and you can do, and they'll try and place you. Silver Nest that I mentioned earlier. But it's just not
But it's a place to start.
it's a place to start, but it's not the same as being in a room and sharing and getting to know people. So like if we meet again next month, which I hope to do, you know, you'll walk in and you'll go, oh, hey Debbie, how are you doing? And, you know, oh John, I'm glad you came back. And, you know, then you've got a follow-up question. Well, have you found a place yet? Or are you still looking? Oh, I heard of something. So it just starts building this dynamic that grows. And I think there is so much energy behind this now that it will grow really fast.
I wanted to say, I'm really concerned about you, John. And I was wondering if you've heard anything yet. I'm just, it's part of my job at Dale is problem solving. And I don't necessarily have the solution, but I feel for you, and you know, it's urgent. I know that I know you said it, so I'm just wondering, like, did you say you wanted to talk to him after?
Yeah, we've got a friend who's, a single male. He's got a 3-bedroom house,
Oh,
and I had no idea whether he would talk to you about a short term, just someplace to stay so you can stay in Mueller for a while.
Yeah,
But it's worth at least talking to him.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you signed in, I obviously have all your email addresses, but I asked you if you would be willing to, if you wanted to share, how you would feel about me giving your, those of you who want me to share your email addresses, I will send it out of this back to you, to everybody here. And so that's a way to keep up with each other, connect, and check on John and see if he's found the place yet, or if you hear something to, send him an email and go, oh, by the way, this is somebody you might call. So if you want to change your mind and you'd like to have that connection, then let me know. Yeah, David.
I did a lot of searching before I ended up moving where I am now, and I don't know if it's still possible, but in the past, I have found places to rent. Of course, this was like many, many years ago, but I found places to rent by just cruising neighborhoods and asking, like if I see someone walking down the street and I might ask, hey, do you know anybody, I'm looking for a place, do you know anybody who has something for rent? And I wanted, because sometimes if you can find a place before it's advertised, so before the sign goes up, and sometimes you can hear it from word of mouth. I even asked postal delivery people, because they sometimes, they don't give confidential information on it, but they sometimes know when a place is, they know people that say they're gonna be moving out in a month, and I've gone to places before. In fact, that's how I got the place I have now. Not is I asked the neighbor, and they said, well, we heard that the neighbor across the street might be moving out, and so and I think maybe you have to be extroverted like me, but I wouldn't, like during the COVID time, it makes a little difference. You can't be like knocking on doors, but if someone's walking and you're friendly or whatever, there's been a number of people who would say, well, I don't know about, I would say I can't find any duplexes, whatever. They say, well, the next block over has several duplexes. I mean, there's a lot you can find out from individuals, what I'm saying, before it gets advertised. And the other thing I want to say is I just can't say enough for Nextdoor. I don't know if you guys use Nextdoor, but it is, it is amazing. And I think it's better than Craigslist because they're not total strangers.
yeah. You know about Nextdoor? Yeah.
You can
Okay,
stand the grousing.
yeah.
If you can stand the grousing.
Yeah. If you can get
Just
what?
have to weed through it.
The grousing.
Okay, does anybody
West Hills is called Capital City Village,
Yes,
but it's for people who live there
you can live anywhere in the city.
and be a part of Capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've lived up there
They're good people.
more than any
Yeah.
place in this whole town. I've lived in Northwest
Yeah.
Austin, so that sounds interesting.
And they've
And
got,
like you said about the grousing on next door, I'm in the domain area, but also the Northwest, and oh my God, I know, it'd be nice to have something a little more narrowed down, yeah.
Yeah.
can I just put in an ad for
Sure.
Like I said before, Wildflower Terrace is not affordable, and
Not
it
affordable.
breaks my heart, and I'm working on it. But I do have a place that's gonna be open, it's a 2-1, so I'm asking too much because it's tied to the property tax increase. But once the actual percentage comes out, I may be able to pull that back. And then the other thing is if people are willing to help me with landscaping and things like that, I can also, we can make trades. So it's a sweet little living arrangement. And the house it's for rent is a sweet little house,
Is it, which one?
3201.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing is, in talking about services and leasing and contracting or coming, that we can do as a group. We can help start kind of setting rates, like what people, I mean, if you're, let's say you're a 73-year-old woman and you've got this big house and all of a sudden you've watched the Golden Girls and you said, maybe I should look into that. And you go, where do I start? What do I charge? How do I do a lease? How do I check people's references? How do I do this and that? And that's something that, and then, or if you're all of a sudden, get a divorce and you're looking for a place and you have no idea what people are asking, what they're charging for rooms. You go to the first one, you don't know if it's a good price or not. We can start setting some standards here. We can, like, what I'm seeing is typical. What I've recently rented for is $900 for 2 rooms and a bathroom.
Okay. Well, that's lots of good information. The network looks like it is working. If you want to get involved, check out the links in the show notes below. Please, if this kind of material is of interest to you and you want to see more, subscribe down below, like the show, and ring the bell so you can get announcements when we publish again. This is your host, Ty Tyree, and I hope you enjoy living in or learning about our fabulous Mueller neighborhood.